Okay, it's 6:30.
I'm definitely here though, so you saw.
Okay, 6:30. I'd like to call to order the Amberley Village Council meeting of March 8th, 2021. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak,
Here.
Peg Conway,
Here.
Lita Kamine,
Here.
Tom Muthing,
Here.
Ray Warren,
Here.
Natalie Wolf,
Here.
Scott Larmer,
Here.
Andrew Keiki,
Here.
Chief Wallace,
Here.
Rick Kay. He did mention he may not be able to make this evening's meeting because of tax season.
Okay. If everyone could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance again, just stay seated. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item on the agenda this evening is our minutes from our last meeting of February 8th. Those minutes were circulated and advanced to all council members. Are there any comments with respect to those minutes? Seeing none, we can consider the minutes approved. Next item on the agenda is the finance report for January 2021.
Thank you, Mayor. Here to talk about the January financials. The Finance Committee has reviewed this in their monthly meeting. So we'll start out with the earnings tax for the month of January. Collections were almost $300,000, and that was up about 2.4% compared to 2020, the month of January. So I believe we're starting out very strong with the earnings tax collection for this past month. Our estimate is still $3 million for the collections for earnings tax. The village had other revenues, and so our total revenue for that for the month of January was $414,000. We have a revenue estimate of $5.1 million. So obviously we're just in the beginning stages of that, but collected almost 8% of the revenues for the year. On the expense side, the village had expenses of $452,000 during the month of January. And our budget is 5.7, so we're about almost 8% of the expenditures have been made thus far. And that left us with an unencumbered general fund balance of $5.1 million as of the end of January. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager? Okay, now I think the chief wants to just mention some new auxiliary officers that are joining our ranks.
Yes. We had a couple spaces open for auxiliary, and we recently added 2 new additional auxiliary officers with the department. Both of them bring a good group of knowledge to the department, and we're kind of look forward to using them in that capacity. The first officer is Eddie Hunter. Eddie comes to us from BCI, where he has worked as a investigator. He was a local police officer, I believe it was in Woodlawn for a number of years, and now he's a full-time investigator up at the state. So that, Eddie brings a vast thing of skills there in that area.
Yeah. Nah.
Okay, and the next officer is a retired officer from Indian Hill, and that is Steve Macon. Steve is served in a number of roles at Indian Hill, where he's been there a number of years. That's his that's Steve's glamour shot, I'll just call it. Steve retired as a lieutenant or a captain over there. He served in a lot of roles. Again, Steve was very big in their investigative section over there, and he brings a lot of knowledge to the department. So we look forward to him as, bringing us some additional help in some areas that we could use it. Those are our newest 2 auxiliaries. Hey, is Mark Race, if you're on, you're not muted. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, are there any questions for the chief? Okay, if not, we'll move on to Matthew Kraus, who is going to address council this evening.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Amberley Village Human Rights Commission and seeking direction from council. The Human Rights Commission has been discussing introducing land acknowledgement into council meetings and also replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. And I think I circulated a possible or a draft of what that language would be. And I'm seeking or asking council what are the next steps to move this forward.
Peg, go ahead.
Could you say a little bit more about what, I mean, I have an idea in my mind of what land acknowledgement would entail, but could you say a little bit more about what it is for perhaps people watch this video later might not know, or just what the committee is thinking of?
Sure. It's basically it is a brief statement that would take place at the beginning of council meetings, acknowledging that the land where the meetings are being held belong to the Shawnee and Miamia peoples. It's a very short statement, and it's something that's helps promote and also raise awareness about Indigenous people and the suffering they've experienced, and moving towards addressing the suffering that they've had. So it's very brief, and since City of Cincinnati, I believe, does it, I think Playhouse in the Park has it too. It's something that other communities in our area have been doing, but it's primarily really to address the, centuries-old mistreatment of Indigenous people, broken treaties, and the like. And it's a step forward in the right direction. And do you want me to explain Indigenous Peoples Day, or is that something?
No, I know what that is. I didn't know that, but thank you for that amplification.
And also the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition, they've been very helpful to us, and they actually have a website that goes into more detail about land acknowledgement, among other initiatives being supported and advocated by Indigenous peoples.
Other questions from council members?
Natalie's hands up.
I have not a question really so much as Matthew, I am so surprised all the time at the directions that the Human Rights Commission goes in sort of opening our eyes to things in the community that we maybe hadn't thought of before. Personally, I love the idea of the Indigenous people's acknowledgement, and it had never occurred to me before. And thank you for bringing it forward. I listened to, of all things, a sewing podcast from that originates in British Columbia, and the introduction always begins with the acknowledgement of the Indigenous peoples in the land from which that they are, and it just gives me a feeling of feeling good about where we all are. So I'm all for that, and thank you. I don't know the next steps, so maybe Scott or the mayor know the next steps, but you do have my support.
Matthew, I do have one question. I have not seen, if you sent something, I have not seen it. So,
Okay.
But my initial reaction is, what Amberley stands for is, we're a welcoming community. We want to treat everyone equally, etc. And, I know I get a lot of requests for different proclamations for different things and so forth. And I've tried to steer away from singling out one group or anything like that, because it felt like it was a little inconsistent with with what we want to do as far as being welcoming to everyone and treating everyone equally. And I guess my question kind of is, where is this kind of, what is the background for this? And how does the Human Rights Commission feel about, you know, in this case, we would be singling out a group for something. And, you know, the next one that comes, you know, 2 months from now, do we single that one out and so forth? You know, as far as Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm supportive of that, but I'm just not sure where Amberley Village does, you know, with Columbus Day. I mean, we no longer recognize Columbus Day as Amberley Village. It's not a holiday for staff or anything like that. So I'm just interested in kind of where it's coming from.
Well, part of the reason we want to seek direction from council is these are the types of questions that really should be discussed with this type of proposal, right? Why this versus other requests that might seem similar. I think what it really came from is that this is a very significant issue. It fit very much with the mission of the Human Rights Commission in terms of education and also protecting or protected classes whose human rights have been violated. And the Indigenous people's rights have been violated for, well, really since, 1492. So it's a very long-standing issue, and that. But I don't think this is necessarily the forum to discuss those exactly why. I mean, that's something I imagine council would vote on and decide if they think it does merit, special or significant treatment. So.
Okay, I'm trying to think what would be, do any council members have an opinion as to what the right committee to work this with the Human Rights Commission?
Yeah, yes, Mayor.
Yes.
I would like to suggest the Health and Education and Welfare Committee, but even before that, just like a quick search on Google brings up Wikipedia and the original founders of the area where we live. I mean, the first thing that is mentioned is the native peoples who settled here, the Shawnee, as Matthew said, and some other ones. So I don't think it's really, it's not the equivalent of singling out certain groups for special treatment, because, I mean, this is just stating a fact that this was the land that originally belonged or settled by these peoples, and now here we are on it. But happy to take it in the HEW committee.
Other council members okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds right.
So the vice mayor who chairs the HEW committee will be in touch with the HRC to figure out how best to work this. And Matthew, thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, and thank you for your counsel.
And I do see that online is Mr. Boney and Mrs. Warren. And again, we thank you too also for everything you're doing on the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to committee reports, and I recognize Councilwoman Kamine.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is our annual report about employee compensation with a vote required by council. This is our big, exciting meeting every year in this committee. So we met on the 25th to discuss this annual issue, and it's always an interesting conversation among council members and a presentation from the administration and the employees about kind of the balancing act of our financial stewardship of our community with recognizing the incredible work of our employees and how much we value them and how much we want to reward their good performance, especially if Amberley has had a good year. And also what we have really been spent some time focusing on in the last couple of years, which is also asking questions about morale and retention and benefits and the things that we do to compare ourselves to other communities to ensure that we can continue to attract and retain good talent, because we also have been talking in this committee about transitioning and succession planning issues. So it's a complicated soup of discussion that we have. We had a really fortunate financial situation this year that was the foundation of our conversation that the manager brought to us, which was essentially as a result of the CARES Act and a variety of sources of revenue that we were able to procure last year in connection with that type of fund, that pot of money and that funding. We were reimbursed by the county for a source of revenue that allowed us to have a little bit of additional money to use this year that would not necessarily make any increase that we had for this year at least, or any additional dollars this year, be a huge negative impact on our long-term finances. So we had budgeted this year for a 2% increase. The committee always, I think in the entire time I've been the chair of this committee, I don't think we've ever done 2%. I think we've always exceeded that. But we are proposing a 2.5% increase this year. But because that source of revenue is has long-term impacts, we were extremely fortunate this year to have proposed by the manager and then supported by all the council members at the meeting, the notion of a one-time using that money that we have set aside essentially for this type of purpose, the ability to give one-time bonuses essentially to all of our employees. And I believe full-time employees will get the full amount and a prorated amount for our part-time employees. That is to really thank our employees for the incredible work that they did last year, getting through a very difficult year, a very, very challenging year, and really as a tremendous thank you, as well as to, because we have this ability to do this and we're very fortunate to do so. So I'm looking at the numbers here. That amount was proposed and the committee is recommending $1,250 per full-time employee. And the other thing to keep in mind about this is that will be for everybody will get, essentially the same amount. So unlike our cost of living increases, which are a percentage of a person's salary, this is an across the board amount. So everybody worked hard last year. Everybody deserves this amount, and the seniority does not come into play with this. But this is all full-time employees prorated for part-time employees. And just for the record, council, treasurer, planning commission, manager, and chief are ineligible for this. The total amount of that comes to approximately $42,500. The total additional amount of the COLA beyond what was budgeted is approximately, I think it's 17,900. So a total of about $65,000 above what we were budgeted for this for 2021. However, this money is, it looks like pretty much all of that will be able to come from the CARES reimbursement. If you do the math, it's off by $3,000 or $4,000. So, or maybe not. Maybe all of it is covered. I can confirm that with Scott. I'm sorry, I didn't confirm that before the meeting. So anyway, we have before us Ordinance 2021-7 to approve the recommendations for our staff. And again, just from me and on behalf of the committee and our conversations, we are just so grateful to our employees for an incredible year and hope that this is a small token of appreciation, and very pleased with everything that has been going on. And we will continue. We kind of tabled some discussions about benefits during this meeting that we will revisit later this year, and really do intend to continue to take up again that landscape of making sure we're competitive and what our peer communities are doing, and making sure that we're keeping morale high and things fair. It's all very important to us. So that will to come. But on the table is 2021-7, ordinance 2021-7 for approval.
Lita?
Yeah.
The first item should be, you should consider waiving the 3 readings.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I will move that we waive the 3 readings for ordinance 2021-7.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to ordinance 2021-7. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that motion? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings for ordinance 2021-7. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak,
Yes.
Peg Conway,
Yes.
Alita Kamine,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes.
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay. So now I move for the approval of ordinance 2021-7 to approve compensation for the village employees.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-7 approving compensation for village employees. Are there any questions or comments? And Councilman Warren?
Yeah, thank you. First, I think this is a great proposal. Thank you, Alita. I certainly support the recommendations. I just wanted to make a couple comments on the process as presented by the employees. I wasn't able to make the last committee meeting, but I know a chart was presented and circulated that showed compensation increases by percent over a 12-13 year period. And that showed that Amberley Village was on the low end compared to the other municipal areas. While I'd like to be, and I want to be sympathetic to with the employees, I think the approach taken is simply not good and can be improved. And so that's what I'd like to talk about. First, you can't arbitrarily select years for assessment. When you call out 12, 13 years, the last year being incomplete data, one can argue, well, why not 18 years? Why not 14 years? It just doesn't sound, it sounds unusual. Most organizations look at 5 or 10 year increments. And so I have the table here, which kind of summarizes some of their data. And instead of using that 12, 13 year period, I used what would be a standard 10 year increment, 2011 to 2020, which is a more typical representation. And importantly, all the data are in. There are no gaps in the data. And to be honest, the metric chosen by the employees, I think, hurts the village employees, nor do I believe it's the correct comparison. The employees presented annual compensation adjustment as something that is additive. In fact, it's a multiplier effect, like interest rates that are compounded annually. So if you look at Amberley Village, the increase over 10 years is not 21%, but is actually 23%. And for all 9 municipalities presented, the cumulative increase is greater than adding them. Of the 9 municipalities, Amberley Village ranked 4th highest over this period and is actually very close to the high end of Evendale. The second problem is what's an appropriate benchmark or baseline. The presentation assumes everyone starts at the same compensation, and we know that's not correct. If you want to compare compensation increases over a period of time, one proper benchmark can be cost of living changes per year, or COLA. And I'm certainly not advocating this is the best or preferred, but I want to use this to illustrate. Over the 10-year period, the COLA was 17.7%. What you see is that for most municipalities, the compensation increase far exceeded the COLA. For Amberley Village, it was about 30% more than the COLA. Now, this kind of increase is certainly not sustainable unless you have an increasing revenue stream or savings. And I'd like to highlight that thanks to the village manager and the employees, we've seen a positive effect for both of these factors. Now, while COLA is one benchmark, I don't believe it's the correct one. The correct benchmark is to compare compensation for equivalent positions across many municipalities. It doesn't make a difference what the COLA is if the average compensation for a position exceeds what we are paying, all other things being equal, we'll lose employees. And we have a good experience with this kind of metric. Recently, we had to review the village manager's compensation. We were presented with data from 20 municipalities, a very good sampling. And when I did the analysis, I found that we were significantly undercompensating our village manager relative to his peers. And to be fair to the village manager, and I would suggest our residents, we needed to make a correction, and we did. But this decision was based on real data. If the village employees want support from the residents that you are undercompensated relative to your peers, then you need to collect the real data. Or as I've asked in the past, maybe the compensation committee should collect these data. This should be in the interests of the employees and the residents alike. I mean, it's all about fairness. Thanks so much.
I just want to make one quick comment. Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. I will say that the chief specifically, I don't think it was in the written materials, but the chief actually did report on some of that information with respect to the police department in our meeting. So I think that we're on the same page on that.
That was presented at the meeting where I showed the classifications where we were in all classifications of our ranks, where we were below or beneath our other peers as well. That was presented.
And so we did account for that, and it is helpful, helpful context for sure.
Okay, other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-7. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak,
Yes.
Peg Conway,
Yes.
Alita Kamine,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes.
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, and Mayor, do I need to do an emergency as well for this? Okay.
Please.
Okay, so I'll move that we declare ordinance 2017-7 an emergency.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-7 as an emergency measure, which will allow us to pay the employees their increases on a timely basis, which is the normal increase is always effective the 1st of April. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-7 as an emergency measure. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak,
Yes.
Peg Conway,
Yes.
Alita Kamine,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes.
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor, for catching all my, I was having trouble with the terminology tonight, but thank you very much.
No problem. I want to now recognize Councilwoman Conway, who just has a quick correction related to something we did at the last council meeting.
Yes, you will have seen in the village manager's report from our packet that there was a typo and an omission in the resolution we did last month regarding cruiser purchases. The amount for the Ford Explorer was listed incorrectly. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to clarify resolution 2021-13 regarding cruiser purchases, that the correct amount for the Ford Explorer is $33,745. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we pass a resolution noting the corrected amounts for the cruiser purchases noted in resolution 2021-13. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we correct the amounts in the resolution 2021-13 as noted by Councilwoman Conway. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Be noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We'll now have the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to mention a couple things this evening. The first, I just want to bring attention to something that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, and that is the litter removal that our maintenance department is involved with. And I think it sort of hit home because we had a significant snowfall during the month of February, and you really don't see the litter, but when that snow disappeared, the litter was underneath the snow. And even though our part-time custodian here in the building picks up litter out on Ridge and Section Roads and up at Amberley Green on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, our maintenance department also picks up litter along with the grass cutting crews. But obviously during this kind of a season, it's up to the maintenance department to do that. But I just wanted to point out the quantity that they picked up after the snow had melted. They picked up 88 30-gallon bags of litter on our roadways. So that is a significant amount of litter that motorists throw out. For that entire month of February, we collected 96 bags of trash of litter. So anything that we can do to encourage people not to litter would be appreciated. But speaking of the maintenance department, I do want to give them kudos. The snow and ice control during the month of February I thought was excellent. They did a great job of responding to it. It's very taxing when you have long storms of that nature, but the maintenance department did a phenomenal job. And what makes it worthwhile is just hearing from residents who acknowledge that. They appreciate the maintenance work, and they also appreciate that the job gets done. And that job gets done not just by the maintenance department, but also by police department. They have helped out immensely in these types of situations, as they always do when we have those types of storms. The last time I wanted to mention was in regards to the great news that we received in regards to our application to the Ohio Public Works Commission. So you know that you have been authorizing this application to the Ohio Works Commission for several years, and we finally have been successful in getting the grant that we were seeking. So we've been awarded a $145,000 grant from the Ohio Public Works Commission, and this is for the work in the Farm Crest, North and South Farm Crest areas, as well as Kincaid. So we have $145,000 in grant money. We also had managed to get a loan through the Water Pollution Control Fund. So that was in the amount of $217,000. And then we were also successful in another grant strictly for Kincaid in the amount of about $71,000. So we are now going into this project with $433,000 of grants and loans to assist us. Now, this is a big project. This is $1.6 million. But we will be moving forward with the Streets Committee next month to talk about the engineering and design contract for that work. But this is also going to be the great kickoff that we'll have next month for our accelerated street program that you have enabled the staff to get going. So we're excited about this, and I know that investing in our infrastructure is extremely important, and certainly those residents are going to be affected by these street improvements are certainly appreciative of as well, and looking forward to the improvement. So that concludes my report.
I know they're based on the various things from council members that everyone's very happy about this. Yes. Are there any questions or comments for the manager?
No questions, but this is great news. Thanks so much for all for the manager, for the staff. This has been a long time coming.
Yes.
And I do know that Councilman Warren has walked both North and South Farm Crest and noted the condition. And over the past 6 weeks, I've had the occasion to walk that route quite a few times on my afternoon walk. And Councilman Warren, your summary of the road condition was spot on. If not, it might even be worse now.
With melting snow, I assume it's worse.
So congratulations to Frank Tweehes for his help and and everybody on the admin staff to
Actually,
getting that.
special kudos to Frank Tweez. No
Yes,
question about it.
absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Please pass that on. I'm sure, he hears that from us.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Okay, with respect to the mayor's report, the vice mayor this is the time of the year. Normally the meeting with the Hamilton County Public Health occurs on the Monday of a council meeting, but the meeting is actually tomorrow this year. So I don't have the occasion to report on that this time, but I'll get that report out next time. And I really don't have anything else to report on at this time. Are there any questions for me?
No Environmental Stewardship Committee this month?
Oh, the Environmental Stewardship Committee did meet on February 22nd. And we are looking at one-stop drop at either the last Sunday in September or the first Sunday in October. And just so, at this point, it is looking like the one-stop drop will not include electronics recycling this year. The market for electronics recycling has changed quite a bit. And the only way that Cohen could do it is if we paid probably $5,000 or $6,000 to have them. And we really don't think, but we are in discussions. One thing we want to do, rather than simply say it's going to be a nothing, we're trying to find out what the alternatives are for residents. And so that's one of the things that will get reported on at our March 22nd Environmental Stewardship Committee. And then we'll make sure we get that out. Tammy will get that in an e-news and on our website as far as what are better ways to do something on that. And then new business, I know Councilwoman Conway has an item.
I just wanted to share that I attended the Deer Park Library update meeting. I think it was kind of their virtual groundbreaking for the new library. And I want to tell you, I was really impressed with what I saw. The whole, the old TJ Maxx is going to be the new branch, and they're going to have like a central, they call it the marketplace area, where you can do quick things, get your books if they're on hold or whatever. They're going to have quiet room. It's like all for age groups. The old people like me who want quiet can go to the back, and they're going to have a craft, they had a name for it. I can't remember what it is, but like a place for messy crafts that's enclosed, but with glass. And then an area adjacent to that. So like if kids were in there, moms could keep an eye on them. And they're gonna have a community meeting room with access from the outside. So they could have like evening events. It was very, very impressive. And it was very, responsive to things people said in that meeting, whenever that was 2 summers ago. You can Google Deer Park Library Project, and the recording of that meeting is available, and they have other, updates and things, but they're looking at like the end of the summer, I think, of having it open.
Councilman Warren?
Question, Peg. Do you have any idea how large that community room might be?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm not even going to guess because I don't remember.
It may be on the website.
It may be available, like where they have the plans and such. Or you could ask Natalie Fields. I'm sure she knows.
Any other
So
questions?
that's it for me.
Any questions for Councilwoman Conway or other items for new business? Chief?
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing with when Ray was talking about the waste thing. I think it's important to bring up that this year, because of COVID and how things transpired, in the past, councils received a letter from the employees and the staff. And this year, I think time got away from everybody as a whole to be able to send something out to where that all that information wasn't given out. But we typically always have that on hand. And I want Ray to understand that even when I evaluated my own salary, I voluntarily took a pay freeze for the rest of my time because I know where I was. I was in probably about 3 or 4 in the county. I understand that. And so we don't, when I look at the patrolmen being 8 or 9 and myself being 3 or 4, that's why I was voluntarily did that. And I think that's something important to note. And it's not about me. It's about the employees looking to do what's best for the department. So in no way were we trying to present numbers that weren't, accurate. At that meeting, we talked about rankings and positions and where we fell based on a lot of county agencies. I bet on my list I had 20 plus county agencies just to give a fair number. But unfortunately, I didn't present that at the meeting. I verbally presented everything, but you don't have a copy of that. You wouldn't have known that since you weren't there. But I just want to make sure that, people aren't looking at the employees as just thinking it's a greed or money grab or something like that. We legitimately come in there, looking at numbers, trying to see what's fair, what's competitive, and the best way we can keep the employees we keep, because the mindset of our employees is what makes our department. And not just the police department, I'm talking about the service department, administration, and everything like that. And, the last thing I want to do is them to think that we're thinking it's, they're out for something like that. And I know that's not what you meant, but I don't want it to come across that way either to them, because we have a lot of respect for the employees, and the mayor has said it over and over, and is, complimented employees for the cost savings measures and the different things we do. And I just, again, want to reiterate that. And, personally, Ray, I'll just tell you that I really felt that they deserved a 3% based on where they were. And that didn't go through. So just so you know, I just want to point that out. I'm not trying to create a debate or anything, but I felt it's best to say it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? I mean, just for residents that are on or watching this, council will be meeting this Thursday. As everyone's aware, as a result of the unfortunate passing of Councilman Hattenback, we've had an opening on council. We do have 5 applicants for that opening, and council will be meeting this Thursday to discuss the process we're going to go through to interview those 5 candidates. And that will be a public meeting this Thursday at 4 o'clock via Zoom. And then the following Monday, we're hoping to interview the candidates, and that will be in executive session on that Monday. And so hopefully, we will be able to move forward very shortly to fill the vacancy and have council up to a full 7-member council again. Councilman Warren?
Are you ready to adjourn?
I am ready to adjourn.
Okay, so right before you adjourn, I'd just like to wish all employees, all residents, a most happy Easter and happy Passover.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for a quick meeting and an efficient meeting. Thank you very much.